You know what's cool to me is like you're talking about you have your degree in music education. Pretty much the majority, it seems, of the people teaching drumline nowadays, they're all have college degrees.
Hmm.
Where back when we marched, that wasn't like it wasn't a
As
thing.
much of a standard,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. There you go. That's what I'm looking for. It wasn't a standard, but now it's like it's great to see everybody's people out there getting educated and then coming back and teaching the activity because they love the activity that much to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it is cool, but I mean, I come from a time I admire the people that didn't, man. You know what I mean? Like they were like rock stars, like, you know what I mean? Like Tom Float, you know what I mean? Like people, Ralph Hardiman, I mean, they had a pair of drumsticks in their back pocket. You know what I mean? These were G's, and some people, I, you know, telling me you're an educator and having the degree is cool, but a lot of people hide behind the veil of education, and they want to have this like professional thing that's going on, and man, if you're going to be professional at the cost of being a real person, then I don't, I can't get down with it, man. So that's me, man, and I might be wrong for it. You know what I mean? And a lot of people probably will disagree with that, but I think that these kids in drum corps are young. They want to be called members. They're kids. They're still young, and they're still learning how to be humans. And if we're not real with them, good or bad, if we're not real with them and teach them how to be better people and how to have respect, then what's the point of all this? We're creating monsters at that point. And so there's a fine line to tread. At this point in the activity where we're saying we're calling everything professionalism and we're calling and all this, there has to be a human element and it has to be real. Have to. You can't go out there and push them as hard as people push them, and not not be real with them about it. They can't go out there and work that hard and lose, and then it not get real. And I think that's what we're seeing, a lot of that, like that be a problem with a lot of these kids, is that they're not at a point where they understand all this stuff yet, but they have a voice to complain about it, and they say, well, I don't like how I'm being treated. But man, when I marched, man, I didn't understand the lessons that some of my teachers taught me until way later in life. And those lessons have helped me with my son, and I remember that, man. I remember sometimes just if I had a survey or a way to complain about my teachers, I would have too. You know what I mean? But it's just gotten to a point now where I think that there needs to be a kind of a recalibration towards all that, because if we're going to continue down this path of professionalism, there needs to be that element of real too. That's got to get injected into it. So.
Was it always that way for you? Because you talk about um, you were learning lessons that you didn't even know you were learning, right? That didn't dawn on you until later. You said you started teaching drum corps 0506.
Oh, five, yeah.
So back then, were you like, this is going to be my style of teaching? I'm going to not only teach the technical, but I'm also going to bring the human side to it. Was that always a part, or is that something that you evolved into as you were doing it? Because you've been doing it for a while. Like, did you try to do that from the beginning, and were you any good at it?
Man, I was passionate, when I first started, so that was there, but man, I couldn't accept it not being great. You know what I mean? And you hear a lot about these kind of people, like, like my heroes, man, like, Nick Angelis, like, you know what I mean? I've heard stories of Nick Angelis, like where he was so demanding of the kids that they couldn't reach his standard. You know what I mean? I mean, that's one of my heroes, man, in this. And I was a lot like that. You know what I mean? I was never going to be happy with it. And I think that that's made me, like, that's changed a lot. Like, I'm happy with, this is your journey. Like, it gets to a point where I'm like, this is your journey, man. If you fail, it's all good. It's all good. I'm just gonna smile at you. I'm gonna look at you. I'm gonna smile because you're gonna learn from it, and I'm cool with that. So yes, I was passionate, but I was out of my mind. You know what I mean?
Was that something that just naturally happened over time and as you gained more experience, or were there specific times where you were like, "Oh, I need to, I need to evolve," you know, because this isn't working, this isn't sustainable. Um, were there any big early lessons in your time teaching?
Well, yeah, man. I mean, like, there's tons of lessons. You know what I mean? Like watching kids just not be able to do it and give their all, and watching a kid, like I mean, I've had times, man, where I've made a drum line run 12 laps. You know what I mean? And then watching your work, like you see them, and then you see them going in, and you see how beat up they are and tired, and you're like, man, look, this ain't right. Like that's not it. And so I've made those mistakes and seen that. And I'll tell you, the number one thing that life will do for you, and this is amazing about life, is it'll humble you. And life's that teacher. Like for me, I went through a real bad divorce. You know what I mean? I ended up being a single father with my son. I got custody of him. I had to raise him by myself since he was from when he was 2 years old all the way till he was four. And I got remarried, and that changed me. That showed me, like, you know what I mean? Like, that made me like I had to rebuild myself as a different person and come out. I came out the other side of that different, and that's, I mean, man, that I think life's the best teacher, man. It'll humble you out and it'll teach you some stuff.
Yeah. We talk about life lessons and how life, it'll humble you. And like for me, we talk about drum corps. And for me, drum corps, I incorporate everything that I learned in that still in my life, in what I've done in my career, because it was hard. I came from a corps that was the standards of the member experience nowadays. It definitely wasn't that when I marched, but it was okay because I was there with my homies, in the grind and just loving every second of that. And when drum corps was over, you couldn't wait till it could start back up again.
That's weird. Like you learn to love the dysfunction. Like
Yes.
it almost goes so wrong so often that you feel like you're living in like an alternate reality,
I
you
mean,
know?
you learn to live. You learn to love the times when where flames are coming up from the bottom of the bus,
Yeah.
and you have to go stand on another bus.
And the food, food truck people are stirring the punch with their arm,
Yeah, and then
and all there is peanut butter and jelly to eat,
yeah,
or maybe just peanut butter.
or they open up the mayonnaise container and it looks like it's been sitting in the sun for like a day. But it is what it is. I mean, and what I wouldn't do to go back to that now. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know where that is drum corps to me. Like that's the real stuff, and I love when I see the kids go through that. I love it. Like that's my favorite thing, and I'll sit and I'll watch them struggle. I watch them fail. I love it. I don't know that we foster that as being a good thing anymore in drum corps.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Like
because you
I
definitely
think it's
like. Oh, go ahead.
I just think that it's now because there were so many bad experiences, right? Like, we have this, like, all this stuff that's happened, all these things that have come out in drum corps, and now everybody's just gotten to the point where they're scared of what made drum corps special and beautiful, which was that, because that made you who you are. It made me who I am, and I guarantee you, all the people at the top of the activity, your Colin McNutts, your Mike McIntoshes, Lee Bettis, all these people that are doing it, they have similar experiences when they marched. And that's what made them who they are. And they make drum corps what it is. So without that, it wouldn't be what it is. And right now we're kind of trying to kill that. We're trying to trim that fat off of it. And that's, man, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, sometimes it's okay to struggle, for stuff to feel a little uncomfortable, to work through it, because while it sucks there in the moment, you learn lessons from that, and it helps you later on in life.
Like pressure makes diamonds.
Yes, there you go.
I say that all the time. That's my favorite one right there. It does, man.
So Carlos, where did you start teaching? Like after drum corps, was it somewhere there in Texas? Have you primarily taught in Texas?
Yeah, I was a band director for 20 years. So East Texas, and then I went to Garland, which is in Dallas, the Dallas area, and then I went to South Texas, and then back up here. So I've been around, man, and this is my first year that I didn't sign a contract as a band director in 20 years. So I was like, you know, like my life's going in like these two different directions, which because I have 6 years so I can retire as a band director, and when you sign that contract and you're at school, I mean, you're talking about pizza, socials, and after school this and after school that, and this parade and that, and they tell you, man, you signed that contract. You know what I mean? You're getting paid. You agreed to this, and you did. So I was at the end of the year last year, getting into it. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a year off. I'm gonna do clinics. I'm gonna do my lessons. I'm gonna write the books I'm writing for people. And I'm gonna see where this could take me. The only thing that I agreed to do was to teach part time at a school here in Arlington. Which has been amazing in itself. And my life's different. Like I'm at home right now. It's 2 o'clock right now. I'm gonna go back for a band practice, but my day ended at 9:05 a.m. today. That's unheard of as a band director in Texas. Yesterday I was chilling. I was watching a movie. You know what I mean? During the middle of the day, and then I do my lessons and I do all my stuff, and it's a different thing, and I'm blessed, and it's working right now. I don't know if it'll keep working. You know what I mean? I don't know if this is about I'll go back and teach and finish. You know what I mean? But right now it's happening.
Do you teach with Brian Lowe with Chavez?
He was talking about you today. I told him I was gonna be on here, and he said, "What a good human you are."
Oh man, Chavez is a great guy. I marched with him. Talking about 94 VK, I marched with him in 94. At the time I didn't realize he was like 17, 18 years old. But then he ended up marching VK 95, which was another smoking line. And then he ended up being like the drum major of Blue Knights. But what people don't realize about Chavez, off here on a little tangent, sorry. The way bass drumming technique is now, about 90% of that comes from him. Because I want to say he's the one that popularized the wrist break.
The wrist break, yeah,
versus
yes.
wrist turn, because we had marched wrist turn, and I was all about wrist turn. And then I remember at VK in 95, he was talking about a new concept about breaking the wrist and wanting to implement that. And I've told this story. George, if he had $1 for every time I told this, he'd be a rich man. But I looked at him and I'd be like, man, ain't nobody want to do wrist break, Stop trying to reinvent the wheel. But now, when he ended up teaching with Paul he ended up, I want to say, maybe he taught Crown, but I know he taught Phantom and Vanguard for sure. He really brought that wrist break in. So, I mean, he was very humble about it. And I told him the last time I saw him, I say, hey, man, isn't it crazy to think that, all this bass drumming technique all goes back to the stuff that you initially came up with? And he said, you don't want to take 100% credit for it, but he is definitely.
That's how he is, man. I work with him every day, dude, and that man is amazing. Let me tell you, it's like being in college. He's systematic. We teaching these portables right now because they're building our band hall, and man, being in that portable is like being in college for me, man. Like I'm sitting there and I'm just learning all this stuff from him, and that's why when I had the opportunity to go and teach with him part time, I was like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like it has, man. I can't even tell you, and he's so humble, and he won't take any credit for being as good as he is. He goes, oh no, man, this and that, and that dude is amazing, man. He's one of the best. He's a legend,
and he's hilarious. I mean, the way he could tell a story, it'll crack. I don't know about now, but like when we marched, that guy, I mean, he cracked me up every day. But no stories I can share on here. But it's some great stuff. But sorry, I went off on that little tangent.
No, that's great, man. He deserves more praise, man. Like he likes to fly under the radar, and he always does stuff like he makes whoever's working with him. He makes those people look good, and he tries to push them to get all the credit. You know what I mean? Like that's just how he is, man. That's how he's wired, and But I'll tell you what, man, he is one of the most amazing teachers I've ever been around.
But now, drum corps wise, have you mostly taught groups in Texas, or have you taught anywhere else?
I taught, no, I taught Pioneer, and then I went to Revolution. So it was like 6 to 11, and then I did BDB from 12 till 17. I was out there with the Odellos.
With the
Yeah, how
Odellos.
did you end up there at Blue Devils B at BDB?
My so we went on the California tour in 2010 and 2011 with Revolution, and the drum lines were really good and they were solid. In 11 we were no in 10 we were second in open class in drums, and the core was like eighth or ninth. You know what I mean? So when we went out there, the staff from BDB, like, they knew who we were. You know what I mean? Like like they noticed us. So whenever the core folded in 11, going into 12, like I ended up on this like somehow on this like Facebook group where they were looking for another snare drummer at the very end, and like getting ready to go into all days. And I talked to my section leader and I said, man, you need to go age out with BDB. And we worked it out, and it was a process talking to Ryan and getting him, because he was coming from South Texas, from Laredo. He's actually from where I'm from, Laredo. And we got him and he went out there, and through all that, like I told you, I ended up on that little group. Well, then all of a sudden he's already out there, and they say in that group, it's like, we're looking for a quad tech. And I was like, I remember texting, I found Ryan's number on that group, and I texted him. I said, hey man, I'm interested. And he goes, I'm listening. And I went out there, and I was tuning quads, and I hadn't really done that very much. You know what I mean? Like, that's that was a lot for me, man. And I think I was there for about 2 weeks, and then Ryan just, we're at his house, and he goes, I don't think you should ever leave Blue Devils B. He goes, you can stay here for as long as you want. And that's the thing, man. It's like being over there in Blue Devils B was like I was with Rick Odello, with Debbie, with Andrew and Ryan. You know what I mean? So, and I mean, I was there with them. Like I stayed with Ryan in his house. I was going over to Rick's house, for family dinners, and I mean, I learned what Blue Devils really is. You know what I mean? Like, real the real Blue Devils culture, and it was like over there, man. It's money talks and BS walks, man. Can you drum or not? And if you can drum, then Rick will respect you. If you can't drum, if he can drum, and he's an older man and older gentleman, he can throw down on that drum. I mean, talking about Scott Johnson's teacher, and I mean, I could drum, and so they respected me, and I survived, and then from there they became my family. So it was that changed, and then Dave Gleis started writing the book in 13. So he wrote 13, 14, 15, 6. It was over, man. I learned so much from that man, from his books. He's one of the best ever.
Those lines are really good too, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny how BDB is. I mean, they're great on their own. They're fantastic. They drum. The whole core is fantastic. Very much, and I hate to use it like say it like this, different than like our era, because it was more of a stepping stone to try to get just for entry level stuff.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, BDB is not even entry level anymore. I mean, you have to have some type of talent to make BDB.
Yeah.
At least it seems like on me. Yeah.
It was '08. They got, I think they won in '08, and they were only going to open class finals like every 2 years or something like that. And then after that, they decided they were going to go every year, and they like three-peated by, like, was it 8, 9, 10, or you know what I mean? And or no, they three-peated 9, 10, 11. I think they got second in '08, and then so it was like A core, B core since then hadn't gotten any lower than second, and I mean, so by the time I got there, which was 12, I mean, man, if we were getting second, we were losing. You know what I mean? It was like, oh man, second. You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing, and it wasn't a B core. In 14, we were 15th world class. So
There's been times when like even after the open class and they perform with the world class stuff, they've gotten somewhat close to the top 12. I mean,
We were 14th. In 14. We were 15th. We should have been higher had we had a different uniform on. We came out in a Pacific Crest uniform. I bet we would have made finals, you know. And that's what it got kind of weird at that point. After that, like with the organization, they really didn't want the B Corps is not designed to be that. They don't want the B Corps to be in finals. So, you know, after Ryan left and Rick left, which was 17, they kind of made it. They scaled it back where they were like, you can't be 21 and be in this, and it was headed crazy. Yeah, they changed it a lot. Yeah.
yeah, because it would be like a what would be a good analogy? Like a pulse pow type thing?
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Two groups from the same organization vying for
Infinity 2.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You know, like I don't. It just wasn't designed for that, and I mean, in all fairness, that probably would end up costing them a lot more money. You know, like too much. You know, to get that both in finals and stuff.
Now, Carlos, uh, correct me if I'm wrong. You're big into like Muay Thai and martial arts too, correct?
For sure.
Yeah, is Muay Thai like your main martial art, or do you do anything else?
I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, so blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh,
And
really?
then, yeah, yeah, yeah. Did for a long time. But you know, I trained Muay Thai. I started when I was like 29, you know, yeah, I was just like at a point where I was like, man, either I'm gonna start playing like four mallet marimba a bunch or something, or I need something else. I needed some type of different outlet, and and I was watching the UFC a lot, and I was like, like? What are they talking about here? And they were talking about like Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu kept coming up. And I said, I'm gonna try one of those two, and you know, I went in did Jiu Jitsu. I mean, I did Muay Thai first, and then when I did the Muay Thai class, it was just like man, because I did karate when I was a kid, and I did capoeira, you know, so I did some type of martial arts before, but nothing like that, like nothing like where it was like, because like Muay Thai is like it's like killer stuff, like you know what I mean. You teach somebody Muay Thai for about 2 3 months, and they'll be able to take care of themselves. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah, 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 for sure. Like, I remember when the Ultimate Fighter was first came out, and it would be like you'd see all the different styles, but now I think it's come to find out the main styles that work for like a MMA fighting is you have to have a solid ground game, the Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Muay Thai. I think that's now the common thing for MMA, not karate, not kung fu, not anything else, but Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or some type of grappling background like wrestling.
Right.
How old were you when you started Brazilian Jiu Jitsu?
It was the next year. It was like so. I did like 8 months of Muay Thai, and then I moved to South Texas. And when I moved to South Texas, they didn't have Muay Thai like as good. It was okay. They had some good schools, and then I hadn't met my Muay Thai teacher that I met in South Texas, Mike Vaya, until later. So I had I found a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu school, and I started training. And man, talk about humbling. I took a beating. You know what I mean? It was about 6 months of a beating. I'll go home, or sometimes I go home crying. You know, and it was a beating. Yeah.
I don't look it now, but I used to train with doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, so I totally understand, man. You can the grind on that. I mean, is crazy. And then the guy I trained with, he was from Brazil, and his brother would run the drills, but with him it would be like he'd just sit there in the middle of the mat and just call everybody out one at a time and work their skill set, and it really humbled you down as far as you'd sit there and you think you have a cross choke or something, and then he'd just flip it around and throw in a Kimura, and that would be it. Have you had any MMA fights?
I had Muay Thai. I fought Muay Thai. I fought 7 times in Muay Thai. You know what I mean? My last fight was in 2016. Yeah. I won. It was a tournament. I won a belt. Yeah.
Have you been able to incorporate any teachings that you've learned, like Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and martial arts, into the way you teach drums?
Well, once again, going back to it, I mean, you don't train that much and then not become a part of who you are. So it's a part of my soul. Well, I'm a Buddhist, you know what I mean? And I became a Buddhist because of Muay Thai. You know what I mean? Like the Thais are Buddhists, and Buddhism and Muay Thai are interrelated. And I was training a lot, and I just started kind of. It was you know what it was. the first time I ever walked and I trained Muay Thai. Afterwards, we got on our knees and they made us Y. And when I did it, I don't know what it was. It was something. It felt like home to me, and it just crossed my mind, and it always was on my mind, like Buddhism, and I when I like I told you, when I went through some really hard times in my life, I turned my life over to being a Buddhist, and I mean that's how I ended up meeting my wife right now. I met her at a Buddhist temple. So it changed my whole life. Yeah. So I mean, to answer your question, yes, it you know teaching the lessons that Muay Thai has taught me. You know what I mean? Be strong, not give up, and you know what I mean. And the timing in it, this is everything. You know what I mean? And I do incorporate that into teaching drumline. I think a drumline needs to be super tough. You know, and the I'm a rep person. I'll jump for 4 hours. Like we'll play rolls for 2.5 hours, and rep after rep after rep, and just almost no teaching, no instruction. Just do it again, do it again. No, stop, it's not good enough. Do it again, and that's the Muay Thai way. You know what I mean? For sure. Rep after rep, just build you strong. You know.
What do you think? It's interesting because these days there are a lot of different types of teachers, right? Um, and you just gave a little bit of insight into what you think works, and definitely what works for you. Um, what's the value of, because we hear about it all the time, and I think for Rob and me, to us that sounds a little bit old school, but there's a lot of wisdom in it, right? Um, when you learn by doing, when you get those reps in, right? And when you don't interrupt that with a lot of words, right? Um, what's the value of that? Like, why? Why do it that way?
Man, I think our ego tells us that we know. Like, oh, I'm a teacher. Like, I know. Like, I know the way. So I'm gonna give you the wisdom. I'm gonna give you my words. To be honest with you, man, if you have a strong section leader that you've taught how to play right, and it's a system, and there's like a systematic approach. We're gonna do this exercise twice. We're gonna do this one twice. Here's our sequence, and you leave, and they'll get to it, and they'll get busy on that, and they'll work without them talking too much. It'll just get better on its own through reps. That's my opinion. Now, our job as educators and as coaches is to come in and say, all right, now those were a lot of reps. Now, you know what? Let's go under the tree. Let's get on stands now. Let me teach you this is an old Sunko sound exercise. You know what I mean? Check this out. Here's a story behind it. And then kind of shift and pivot and know when to do that stuff. But man, if you're sitting around talking all the time, man, what's the point? You know what I mean? But don't get me wrong, man. There's some people that I see that's their style and that's their way of doing it. More power to them. That's not me. That doesn't work with me. Like I'm not wired that way. And if I tried to be that, like, let's say you hired me and you told me, I'm gonna pay you money to be that way, I would undoubtedly fail. Because I'm not built that way. I don't know how to do that. And that other person that's come up using their words would fail in my system as well. So that's a big reason why I put myself around Frank Chappell and Lee Bettis, and that's why I agree to be around people like that. Even with Ray Ulibarri, his system was a lot different. What he's doing, and even with Brian Lowe with Chavez, you know what I mean. I'm a student of this, and if I can learn something new from someone else, then I'm down. You know what I mean? I'm down. I'm definitely not stuck to where that's all I can do. But this is the way. Like, you put me in a room and give me a drum line, and you tell me, "Hey, figure it out, make it happen. We're gonna do some reps. You're gonna be strong, and then once you're strong, we can talk."
Yeah, it's interesting because I would say that, definitely from watching you with Genesis and then watching you with Crossman, your lines have a certain sound and a certain way that they are, and we see you operating a certain way in the lot. There's going to be tracking, you know. Um, what do people not see? Like for you, what's fundamental when you first get those kids? What are those important things that you know work for you in your system? Is it technique? Is it approach? Is it sound? Is it again just like reps and let the exercises do the work for you? What's important to you as far as like those things again that people don't see?
Well, I think technique is king of kings. You know, right? You have to have technique, and it has to be established. Because if you the reps are man, go 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction, you can be in the wrong place really quick. You know what I mean? And you can be far away from home. You know, so first we get that technique right, and then the structure. Like I'm really big on a sequence, and I started that really in Genesis, like because the exercises I like to do are pretty involved. So you know, there's always going to be like we're doing this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, and once we get them down, once we develop the sequence, I don't care if it's clean or dirty. You're going to do 2 reps of each exercise, and we're going to go down the sequence, and then I'm not going to I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to get sad. I'm not going to get happy. I'm going to tell you that's where you're at. Is that good enough for you, or is that not good enough for you? You know, and then we're going to go get in the gym, and we're going to do some rolls, and we're going to build up your ability to be able to play stronger and work on the fundamentals that are you're going to be able to be successful playing that sequence down. And then that pays off in the end for me. Like sitting around talking about stuff too much and trying to break these exercises down, and you waste a lot of time, and they never learn how to look strong in a lot. You know, and I know it's not about the lot, but man, how much of drum corps is what is judged and based off that lot in those videos that come out. You know what I mean? And then you guys are
Well, and it's part of the experience. Like the we talk. It's a double-edged sword. Like we talk a lot about what really matters is what happens on the field, what it looks and sounds like on the field. But percentage-wise, that is a very small percentage of the actual experience that these kids are going through, right? So them wanting them to feel strong in the lot, just for their own well-being, I think makes it worthwhile.
I mean, like for me, the first impressions, that's where you give out your first impression. For me, it's like, how do they look? Is everybody playing uniform? How's the sound quality? You can hear that more in the lot than you do like on
Because they're
the
right in
field.
front of you.
Yes, yeah. And you could tell like, okay, who are the strong lines by the way they sound and the way they look. You know, like your lines, they always look uniform. They always have that look to them that you know that Carlos teaches that line.
Carlos, you ever teach indoor?
indoor. No, not too much. You know what I mean? I'm a consultant with Synergy Indoor. It's in South Texas right now. So doing that, I write for some indoors too, but I don't do any like independent any world stuff. You know what I mean?
Is that because of where you're at, located in Texas, that it's not a big thing, or because that's not something you really wanted to do?
Man, I was so into Muay Thai, you know what I mean? Because I was fighting like until I started doing all this with my stuff with my books, some of my lessons. You know what I mean? I wasn't even really, man, because they had me at VIP for a little bit. Like I was you know, and I went out to some camps, and then I was just like, man, I was going through a divorce and all this stuff, and I was like, man, whatever. You know, I didn't even care, and I was working. I was a band director, so I wouldn't drum. I would do anything. So it was more about that. Like right now, I'm very interested in exploring everything. You know what I mean? And since August, I've taught 20 different drum lines through all the clinics I've done. I've been everywhere, like all over. Like it's been crazy. And you know what, man? It's been so amazing to like all these people. They'll open up their hood and let you see underneath it because you're there to help them. And so they're like, "Hey man, check it out, dude. You know the oil's leaking over here. You know this is happening. What do you think? You know?" And you're like, "All right, cool." And so you're there, like you're learning all this stuff. So I'm I'm like I said, I'm not teaching at a school full time, so I'm down for whatever right now. You know, like it's been different.
And is that just different groups hitting you up on social media, or whatever channels they can get into contact with you and saying, "Hey, can you come to a clinic, or can you come consult? Just check it out and tell us what needs to be fixed."
Yes, like, and I made a few phone calls. A couple people reached out. You know what I mean? And then, I told a few people I was going to be teaching, and then, you know what? The craziest part is that I've had to say no so many times because I've been so busy, tied down to a job,
Mhm.
that I could finally say yes to all these people. And I called them up. I said, "Hey, man, you asked me 4 times in a row," and I said no. I said, "Now it's a yes." And they were like, "All right, come on, let's make it happen." And before I knew it, I was all booked up every weekend, and it's just it's been it's been pretty crazy.
Can I ask you, what does that feel like? Like, that's a, not everybody gets asked to do that, right? Um, do you stop and go, man, people are asking me to come in and get my advice and get my insight and wisdom on this? Do you ever stop to consider that's happening? You know,
It's kind of like just knock each one out one at a time, and like just keep going.
keep your head down.
But don't get me wrong, man. It's humbling. I mean, it just even to say the word humbling doesn't even do it justice. Like, I'm it's like all like the same thing. Like, and I guess like that's part of my message is like, who am I? I'm nobody. You know what I mean? I'm nobody. And if I can work 7 days a week, and this can happen, this change, this shift in my life, I can only imagine some of these amazing people I see out there and what they could do. So get out there and grind. Like, go for it. And it'll happen. Because if I can do it, man, anyone can do it.
Do you have, you've been doing this for a while now. Do you have former students that have gone on to teach and um, or is there anything about like you watch these kids grow up and become adults and now they're older adults having kids of their own and stuff like that? Do you keep up with former students and get to see them and see the paths that their lives have taken?
I mean, family, yes. Yeah. I mean, I have students. So one of the center snare from Revolution that got me the job at BDB, he's now a head director in South Texas, and I went and did a clinic at his school. And my drum major from high school, his son is my lesson student, and he is the principal of the fine arts school that my father started in Laredo. And I went down there and did a clinic. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, like, it's like, so it's like crazy. Like, another cool one was my student became the captain. This happened years ago. My student became the caption head of Guardians, and then my Mickey's son marched with him. I took a picture, and it was like, what? You know what I mean? It's like, so my teacher's son is marching with my student, and it's just like, seeing all that, like, so I mean, man, you know there's been a lot of that kind of stuff. It's just really cool to see, man. Like,
So a lot of it's come full circle then.
like I said, you know what I mean. you know if I can do it, anybody can do it. You know what I'm saying? And to add to that, like, when I went to Laredo and I went to the magnet school that I was telling you about, my father started that school. And when I was in high school, man, I wasn't the best kid. You know what I mean? I made some mistakes, man. You know what I mean? I made some mistakes, a lot of mistakes in my life. I got to go back to that school, and my friend is a principal, and he asked me to speak to the staff, and I got to tell them that. You know what I mean? Tell them that this is my time to give back to Laredo. For all the bad I had done, in my life. And that's kind of how I feel going through all this stuff. It's like this is. I don't think penance is the right word for it. You know what I'm saying? But this is my chance to do good for some of the bad I've done. And I'm grateful. You know?
And I'm sure by bad you don't mean nothing bad, but like probably not the best student, maybe.
No, man, bad, man. I was a little thug kid. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
really? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay. I
man,
guess maybe bad
From the
does mean.
streets.
bad,
From the
bad.
streets.
You know what I mean? Bad. You know what I mean? I don't come from the same world that a lot of these people come from. You know what I mean? I come from a good family, man. But behind my house, man, that neighborhood, the people I grew up with, my best friend's dead. You know what I mean? Alcohol, liver poisoning. I have another friend in jail, 99 years in jail. You know what I mean? Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, I'm from the streets or whatever. But I in Laredo, man, growing up in Laredo, you were set up to fail, man, where I come from.
So is it safe to say at a certain time you hit a crossroads and you had to decide which way you're going to go? And luckily, you took the left-handed drum path, and like you're talking about earlier.
Look, man, me in my life right now, since my son was 2 years old, I don't drink alcohol. I don't do anything, nothing, and not one impure substance, caffeine. I can't lie. So I love me some coffee, right? But you're not gonna catch me drunk. You're not gonna catch me high. You're not gonna catch me on pills. You're not gonna catch me on anything. Okay, and I don't live my life like that. And that's the thing is like and not to take away from anybody that does, man. Hey, more power to you. That's how you can live your life. But every time I try to live my life like that, I hit a brick wall, man. You know what I mean? Big time. And people that know me from when I was younger, they can attest to that, man. And so, like I said, is I changed my life, man. When I got full custody of my son, I remember the last time I drank. I was watching him, and he was like in these Pampers. And I tell this story to a lot of people, man. And he was standing, he was holding himself up, watching Mickey Mouse Club. He had these little mini pancakes, and I'm watching him from my apartment, from the kitchen. He's got this little opening, and I could see him in the living room. And I'm about to drink, and I said, man, if I drink right now, I'm gonna get drunk. And then what if he gets to teething? I'm gonna lose him. I'm gonna have to take him to the emergency room. If he gets 104 fever, they're gonna take him away from me. I poured that alcohol out. I never drank again, and that I think that is like sobriety and being and going through that in my life is what has given me the strength, like even when things knock me down, to get back up and be positive and kind of keep going, So
That's great.
not to get too deep, man, but
No, no, no. That's fantastic, man. It's your story that right there just sounds like people that we've marched with, and maybe us at some certain times in our life when you have to make a choice, and it could have went the other way for all of us, and it just ended up making the right choices and working out.
Yeah, I mean, and knowing that um, in the moment, I mean, I think people need to be reminded that in the moment when you have somebody in front of you that you sort of assume a lot of things about, that they're a bad kid, that they're not a great student, that they're this, they're that, and then in our minds we extrapolate that out into, well, this is how they're going to turn out, and we treat them a certain way, right? But that's not necessarily the case, and given you have a choice, like you talked about life choices, the people in your life have a choice about whether to help you, whether to write you off, whatever, and they need to know that this is possible. They need to know sobriety is possible, being a good father is possible, having, impacting lives. That a person like you growing up would grow up to impact lives on a daily basis. That's possible. So that should inform, how we treat those people when we come across them in our lives.
I was going to say real quick before I know we're getting close to wrapping all this up. I talked with Ty Sloganhope. I hope I didn't butcher his last name. Ty, he taught with you last year. I hit him up for a couple questions to ask. Because like I said, he taught with you. One of the questions he wanted me to ask was, in your opinion, what do you think has been the hardest book that you've had to teach?
the hardest book I taught, oh man, 2015 BDB. Because and I blame Ryan Odello. Ryan, if you hear this, that was your fault. And he told Dave Glide, go ahead and write whatever you want, whatever you write for the A-Corps, and he did, and it was hard, And that was the most talented line we had. They were good, man. You can go look it up. They got a whole they would make these things called mixtapes, where they put all the different footage from the whole summer and like different stuff in there. I think one of the quad drummers made it, and man, that book was amazing. But it was so hard. It was so hard to do on the field too. Like on top of it being just hard in the lot.
When you say hard, was it like hard from a chops perspective? Was it hard from like a mental perspective? Was it hard to know how to fix it because it was so, complicated and weird? What actually made it quote unquote hard?
Yes.
all of it, right? Dave Glide.
Dave Glide, man, like
Let me just say Dave Glide.
yes, rhythmically complex. You know what I mean? It was there was all kinds of like flam vocabulary in it, choppy stuff. You know what I mean? It was everywhere, man. And he had all these three twos, like chicka 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 chicka, and then he would do it off the left, chicka 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 chicka, and that's it. That's what I love about Dave Glide's beats is that every year he would have a certain trip he was on, and it would be like this was going to be everywhere in the book. It was like this theme, and because that's what he liked. It might have been one year it was like those and they were everywhere, and that year it was those the flam egg beaters thing. So I mean, he's the best, man. Like he's he's 92 to now he's still writing. Who else has been doing it at one place that long?
Yeah.
Going on 33 years now, you know.
No one, no one. There's nobody that and continue to evolve and continue to let the students guide it and change it and different styles and going from where it was devs to now what it is, you know what I mean? And all these different flavors of it all, man. So
Yeah, you went from, I mean, he's gone from doing a hardcore jazz show to like the metamorphosis of what, you know, the Blue Devil shows are now, you know. Just entertaining, not so much focused on jazz.
Cirque du Soleil on the field.
Along those lines, 100%. Yeah. Hey, Ty also wanted me to ask you, in your audition settings, what do you look for when people are auditioning for you?
You know, I look for a good player and a great human. Now, unfortunately, everybody plays the role of a great human when they're auditioning. You're not going to see the truth until later, and you can't really. You don't know who's down until you know what I mean. It's time to throw down. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people they don't show you who they really are until it's too late, and that's the tricky part right there, man. You know. So after some of my experiences, up to now, a new rule I have for myself is if they're not able to get it done, like I think you need to take a really long hard look is if you need that many people on the field, like rather than take an extra one person or two and say, oh, we'll train them along the way, and if it's going to be that, then they dictate what the book is at that point. Like they decide, like that player, you're chained to that player, because if you try to, sometimes people can't deliver, man, and that breaks them. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Every staff person out there, we're right now we're on the cusp of drum corps audition season. Every staff person is going, yep, and they're racking their brains for like, how do we find that stuff out now instead of later? You know, do we call and we talk to like former teachers? Do we do certain things during auditions? But yeah, that's like age old question, you know. That stuff, when you find it out mid-season, late season, you're like, oh, why didn't we know this back then? You know?
I think that it's a combination of they have to individually play for you, and they have to have an individual interview. Once you're getting serious about this person, like we're really looking at this person, and then you have to ask them what their intentions are. And I think they have to be able to tell you, because if they're sitting telling you, I want to be in finals, and that's why they're being there, then that'll let you know a lot about this person. Not to say that's wrong, you know what I mean? Some people have that's their dream, right? Be in finals, but if depending on what you're looking for and what your criteria is and what you can offer them, because if you're at Blue Devils and you're trying out for Blue Devils and you're just like, my dream is to be in finals, duh, you know what I'm saying, right? If you're trying out for Pacific Crest or Academy and you're like, I want to be in finals or I'm not going to be happy, well, then you might not be happy this summer. You know what I mean? Like, so I would worry more on about those kind of answers at that lower level. You know what I mean? Like that is because, man, it gets dark, man. In that what is that hunt, that 16th to 12th.
It's brutal.
It's brutal. And it gets dark, man. It gets dark down there, man. I live down there, man, and this is the trenches. And if sometimes, man, you can't give them. You work so hard and they fail, and they don't understand those lessons, so they go home and they kind of digest it all, man. You know what I mean? And that's, it's rough, man. So
I mean, there have been plenty of conversations I've had with like people like who do Blue Devil auditions or any of like top level groups, and what they talk about is the staffs. What they talk about is we have to um, try to test and find out those things because when everybody because everybody who's showing up to these groups can drum, right? So it's almost like they have a luxury of like we can spend the time. We're afforded the ability, the privilege of being able to spend the time to sort of get in their heads a little bit to help us make our decisions. But the groups that actually need that help are the ones that are just hoping enough kids show up that can drum, right? So all of those people in the 15 to 19 that are like fighting to make finals or fighting to perform 3 nights, right? Finals week, they don't have that luxury, you know, of like being able to go to that place. And like you said, sometimes they fall victim to it. And by the way, let's in keeping in theme with what we were talking about earlier, not necessarily the kid's fault, you know, because there's a chance for it to turn around for them, you know. But sometimes their timetable of turning things around impacts your timetable of getting done what you need to get done. But we need to handle those situations in a healthy way, a way that is if we can't be 100% of a win, we got to make it as much of a win as possible.
Yeah, but like for the ones that, okay, they make it through the audition and they fool you in the audition as far as who they are, but then you find out who they are during the season. You got to make sure that they don't bring the rest of the line down at the
Oh,
same
100%.
time, because that I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
no, for sure. You know, for me, man, I never. I told you why I got into drum corps. I got into drum corps because I saw this video, this passion and this what they were doing and how amazing it was, and the uniformity of it all. Man, I don't care about a score. I've never cared. I think the scoring in drum corps is what makes drum corps not fun, unless you're winning. When you're winning, or you've gone from being 10th and now you're 5th and you're still winning, right? Like that's a win, a different kind of win, right? And unless you're winning, or you've gone from 14th, now you're in finals. You know what I mean? It's a different kind of win, but it's a win. It gets real dark, man. I've seen people get fired for being 5th place in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, who cares? You know what I'm saying? I think at the end of it all, it's about the quality of it and the quality of instruction and what kind of people you made. The last thing I told the kids at Crossman, I said, it's funny you talking about pressure makes diamonds. You know what I mean? I said, man, y'all put in the work, blood, sweat, and tears. I said, you rep after rep, you didn't give up. So this was like right before we went on. We were done, and we are gonna go do our run through and go to semifinals. And I told them, I said, you put in all these reps. I said, you started off weak, started off dirty, and now you're diamonds. I told them, you're welcome. I said, go to the field. And I didn't talk to them again after that. I told them thank you at the very end, but we didn't talk anymore about anything. And that's the thing, man. I don't care about a score. You know what I mean? Winning's fun. It is. Like I told you, I won WGI. I was no place in Division 2, and I remember that '96 Lone Star as being one of my best memories of my life. You know what I mean? That season. So
Us older gentlemen have the benefit of understanding what lasts, like what matters 20 years later,
Oh yeah.
30 years later.
You talk about the '96 Lone Star. For me, it was like before I drum corps, I was in youth band, and if George had $1 for every time he heard this, he'd be a rich guy. But like my youth band experience, that's still family to me, man. And the only reason I would have probably stayed doing the youth band thing, but my instructor, he'd passed away like in '90, and so had he not passed away and he would have stayed there, I probably would have not gone anywhere, just because it was family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, man, that's my cue. My AirPods died. I gotta get to a rehearsal as well. I mean,
Carlos, thank you for coming on. But very quickly, because I know you're hustling and people need to be able to find you if they need your services. How can people find you? Plug whatever you want.
you can find me at Left Hand Path Drum Book. It's on Instagram. You can find me www.lefthandpathdrumbook.com. You know, find me on Facebook, Carlos Botello. I'm around. So just hit me up, man. Anything y'all need, just it can be as simple as, hey, man, I need some advice on how to play a tap roll lower. I'm always around, man. So
Couple things real quick. Are you teaching anywhere this summer, or are you taking the summer off?
take a summer off, do some clinics. You know what I mean? Who knows? Maybe somebody's gonna call me to fill a couple weeks. You know what I mean? I'm definitely a free agent right now. You know what I mean? So I won't be with Crossman this summer. Like that kind of ran its course. So at this point, either take a summer off or somebody will call me. I always land somewhere in time.
And the other thing I wanted to ask, do you have any endorsements? Do you have any, sponsors you want to shout out to?
Sawyer's Percussion. I mean, I gotta, Bruce Sawyer's always takes care of me. I got a signature stick with him, and Beetle Percussion. I got a drum pad with them. Sabian cymbals. Mapex drums.
Carlos, thank you for your time. Thanks for hanging out here on the shop. It was great talking with you because, like I said, I've seen you on a whole bunch of different social media platforms, and I didn't know a lot about your background, but now it's like,
Yeah, sometimes we can make that mistake with people that are visible.
yeah,
Right. We pretend that we know them, but we appreciate you letting us in a little bit and showing us a little bit behind the curtain, allowing us to get to know you a little bit more as a human being,
100%.
which obviously is important. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I'll tell you guys this, man. You guys are helping so much, man. Like with all the videos, and the drum corps videos are one thing, and that's amazing. But it's the high school stuff you're doing, man. Giving these kids a chance to be out there, man. I saw a video of Ayala the other day, man. It's amazing. All the stuff you're doing, man. You guys are changing the activity. You're helping bring stuff forward in a positive way, man. And I appreciate you guys, man. And I look up to you guys so much, man.
Well, hey, we'll let you get going to rehearsal, and with that, we'll tell everybody, yeah, good night. Make sure leave us some comments if you guys get a chance, because it's cool to hear from the couple of people that
The
watch
community,
this. Yeah. So we'll see everybody on the next episode.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.